It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, it's sort of become a standard thing for us to look at the markets. Well, every hour, even after the semi-pause yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's not a full pause on tariffs. The Dow futures down 670. S&P down 2.17%. NASDAQ down 2.6%. Oil is now down again, down almost $2. Mm-hmm. It was up. What was it, up $3? Just a couple of, they've dropped like $4 just in a few hours. Mm-hmm. Oil has. Mm-hmm. So what's going on there? Because if you look at the Asia market, if you look at first the European markets, everything's up in Europe, everything.
Yeah.
And significantly now, they'd be responding to what happened in the U.S. yesterday.
Yeah, if they believe they're getting the better end of the deal, or if there's a deal to be done, depending on which market you're talking about, then that's going to be a positive reaction that would mimic what we saw here stateside. But then there's also the other concern here in the States, number one, and that is to brace for the impact, the retail impact of what's going on with China, the tariffs with China. And also the idea that still there's sentiment, a great deal of sentiment out there that we're quite possibly in a recession right now. And we won't get first quarter GDP numbers until April 30th. And then, of course, it takes 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth to constitute a recession. But if you have more and more indicators that we're in that mode right now, again, it's, that drives the oil prices. If it's believed that consumers there will be less demand for oil. And again, the retail impact is kind of unknown. I mean, we know it's going to be big, but in exactly what ways will the consumer change? But also the supply chain. If you think about the supply chain, I won't say it's a well-oiled machine, but order a widget on Amazon and it gets to your door the next day. Wall Street Journal did a video, what was it, a couple of years ago, whenever it was, that kind of walked through what it takes to get from China or wherever to the U.S. And that's, that has to be a great concern of anybody. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty. And also the question, could they hit the pause button with China? I told you during the break, I wouldn't be shocked to see a pause deal happen. I don't expect that, but I wouldn't be shocked based on everything that happened yesterday. But we'll see. China's the one that clearly politically you get away with, and China needs to be dealt with. If Donald Trump can't get it done, then we'll never get the intellectual property rights issue solved with China, because I don't think there's political will beyond his presidency, and I don't think there will be any leverage after that. So I guess we'll see what the day holds and what happens with China.
Well, this is a question, one of the questions yesterday, will there ever be a trade deal with China? And the reason is not just because of that, but it's what does the president want? Mm-hmm. And I asked a question earlier, and I asked it to a couple of people I know yesterday. This is after the pause in the tariffs. I said, and they both support the tariffs. And I said, can you tell me what the end goal is? They didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Neither of them knew what it was. And you would look at China and say, okay, is the end goal just for you to respect intellectual property rights? Is it for you to drop any unfair trade barriers that you have? Or does Trump expect that China is going to buy just as much from us as we buy from them? When Besson was out there yesterday, he was saying what we want is, the tariffs gone and we want to bargain in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he used that term, good faith, which a lot of our trading partners had to say, well, it hasn't been so far good faith. You didn't come to us and say, let's see if we can do a deal. You just put the tariff on us.
Right.
And so if you've ever bargained in a contract, bargaining in good faith
and
is
that
something.
could well be an indicator that the Besant has a totally different approach to this than
Navarro.
Peter Navarro, which, if you haven't heard, a story got out that in the Oval Office with the president yesterday mid-morning, it was Lutnick and Besant, and Navarro was not in the Oval Office when they were making the decisions to reverse the many of the tariffs. That's, that could be where Besant is. And again, if he's got the president's ear on this and he's taking the lead, where at least over the last 24 hours or so, it seems like maybe he is, then that's going to be his approach. I guess we'll see.
So every market in Europe is up anywhere between 4 and 6%. Then you go to Asia. Every market except for India is up. India is down 0.61%. Everyone is up, including China. The Nikkei in Japan up 9.13%. Now, we know that they're having discussions, but, with the White House, the president talked about that. But also what we found out is it wasn't China that was dumping treasuries. They were, but really the major culprit was Japan. And so the president reacted to that and paused the tariffs. Is the Nikkei up because they view that Trump has a weaker bargaining? By the way, I'm asking this as a question, and the question is not making a statement. I'm simply asking the question. Is it up because of the optimism that they believe the Japanese position is stronger because they believe Trump blinked?
I think it could be, might be. Certainly, a 90-day pause gets them another run at whatever agreement is going to be in place. But if they believe going forward it's going to be more predictable, I think that's what the entire market globally has been asking for. What is it ultimately you're trying to get to? Which goes back to the Besant comment on bargaining in good faith. Well, do you mean starting now? Because the market, the global market doesn't see it that way. As you mentioned, you throw down the gauntlet first. Well, that's not acting in good faith. So it could be that, all right, there's a different approach here, and we do believe we'll actually be able to have a conversation without the tariff being in place and putting us under the gun.
When you say that in any contract negotiation, and you and I know that from contract negotiations we've done, that means something.
Yeah, right.
Legally, it probably legally doesn't mean anything here, but legally with businesses, you have when you're coming to the end of a contract or an end of a deal, you can have a clause in that contract that stipulates that you have to bargain in good faith for the next contract, or you're in breach of the original contract. Mm-hmm. That's how important the concept when you use the term good faith is. So when Besant used that yesterday, I think a lot of ears perked up and went, what does that mean?
Right.
Because he's the one who said, and we're going to bargain in good faith. And I'm like, okay, that was deliberate.
Well, and good faith means that you've got that olive branch extended fully, and you expect that from the other side. But basically, you're giving plenty of room to everybody, and that's breathing room. That's what the market was looking for.
And you look at the language, because you had told me the quote from Trump where he said that if you don't retaliate, there will be rewards for you.
Yeah, right.
That wasn't the language from the day before. Right. And so when you see in any negotiation, again, when you see a change in the tone and what you're saying, how you're approaching it, you get a reaction from the other side. There's a reason that you did that.
Right.
It's going to be interesting because I look at everything that I'm like, I have no idea. These are the kind of shows where it's like, what the heck are we going to be talking about tomorrow? Where's this going to go?
Well, again, in my opinion, when we're talking about our enemies and war and threats to our nation, a little bit of unpredictable nature in a commander-in-chief isn't a bad thing, especially when they've demonstrated, and Trump has, that he's willing to take care of business and help secure a nation or keep a nation secure, as he should be doing. And so that's kind of what you want in place. But when it comes to trade, you want more of the Besant approach, and that is the acting in good faith. Who was it that I sent to you yesterday? I sent you the screenshot of somebody posting on X that, maybe next time when you want to, I'll find it here. It's something, in fact, that you and I have talked about. I think I actually said it at one point. It was Rich Lowry. The easier way to enter into trade negotiations with our major allies and tariff China would have been to enter into trade negotiations with our major allies and tariff China.
Well, that's always been our approach. In fact, when you and I were texting each other yesterday, I said, well, we've been saying that since Trump was actually, it might be late 2015, early 2016, so 9 or 10 years, we've been saying the same thing. If you want to go after it, you first go after China. But the interesting thing is when you talked about, our enemies, well, they're our enemy and our trading partner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a unique position that they're in that most everybody else is not in.
Many will tell you on national security, they're our biggest threat. That China's our biggest threat. So,
well, Democrats won't. That would be climate change.
Yes, exactly. Somebody posted, Chef Andrew Gruel. He said, wait for it. People are going to have the Chinese, liberals. He clearly means liberals. It won't be long before people have the Chinese flag in their bio on social media, like they do the Ukraine flag, liberals. It was funny.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah. So it's...
they're the victims.
Exactly. And it's a lot trickier. And again, I think politically, you do get, and we've seen the polls, that the American people understand that you have to put the pressure on China.
Mm-hmm.
Again, things start to change when the retail impact is there, and we'll see what that is.
I am China.
Yeah, exactly. China strong. Right? Yeah. We're with you, China.
Well, again, what's funny about it is the Democrats, and I mentioned earlier an article I read yesterday that was stating that they just don't get it. I mean, they have an opportunity to attack Trump on a variety of different things, and they're still stuck on the radical transgender movement.
Yeah.
They're still stuck on, okay, we need to defend criminal illegal immigrants. It's like they don't seem to get it. They're so involved in their own bubble. So when you said that, it's like, oh, don't be ridiculous. Well, wait a minute. It might not be ridiculous. I mean, if a man can be a woman because the man says so, then why can't we be China strong?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Wait for it. But, and that's it, too. I think some of what you saw on the pop, both here domestically and then abroad in the markets, I think is that initial gasp for air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And realizing you now have the luxury of that breathing room in that 90-day pause. Some of it, I think, probably is, okay, he blinked, and now we can all go to the table, and it could mean, greater deals for the U.S. It's not going to be balanced trade. We're not going to get to the point of 0 versus 0. It's not going to be a balanced trade. But if you have nations that pledge to buy more from the U.S., that kind of thing, all right, great. Then you get your victory lap on that politically. But it's going to be a case-by-case basis. And the word is Trump wants to be a part of every negotiation.
And what is a pledge? How do you force a market to buy a certain amount of United States goods?
You can't. Except to say, well, that if you don't do that, we'll throw tariffs down. Well, then you're back to doing, again, something that may be damage and, politically, and, you're back to square one. So we'll see.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Another indicator of the popularity of strawberries.
In the first 2.5 months of the year, strawberry shipments were up in Florida. Florida produces strawberries during the winter and spring and typically accounts for 10% of domestic production.
With USDA research economist Catherine Weber adding the remaining 90% of strawberry production comes from California, with peak shipment season for those berries in May and June.
For 2025, the California Strawberry Commission expects acreage in California to increase from last year.
Likewise, Florida strawberry production by acreage is also expected to increase. Fresh strawberry exports reached record high volumes in 2024. From a price perspective, both grower and retail prices for strawberries were down year over year in February, with the retail price average at $2.91 per 12-ounce package. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. As oil prices up a little bit, California gas prices still lead the nation at $5 per gallon as the national average plummets. Still, we're above what it was a month ago. Where I live, it was $2.94. Yesterday, we were at $2.79 a month ago.
Yeah.
So it's actually still up. But the average California gas price still $5 per gallon. While this is fascinating. This is from Just the News. John Sullivan's Just the News. While Governor Gavin Newsom says price gouging from fuel producers is to blame, which his own energy czar says is not true. California leaders say much of the difference comes to fees paid by California drivers to pay for everything from bike lanes to the state's long ongoing bullet train.
Yeah.
It's like Newsom, it's the gouging. It's like his own energy czar.
It's the state gouging.
No, it's the state taxes. You're right. It is gouging. It's state gouging.
Well, I mean, you think of the bullet train thing and all these items that, again, are that the government is charging for. Who's gouging who? They've done, how many investigations over the years have they called for? On the federal level, I don't know how many it was. It was dozens and dozens. Never found any cases of gouging. Nope.
Listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Rhode Island Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I have a question to ask coming up, but first, I was just, again, looking at the Babylon V, and they have products most affected by tariffs in each country. Are you ready?
All right, what do you got?
Here we go. China. Chinese finger traps. They will now be $18 each and no longer possible to escape.
Yeah.
From China. The next global pandemic, $19.99 plus shipping and handling. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery.
There you have
it. Japan, sushi rolls, $99.99 for a non-special roll. Spicy tuna will cost you extra.
Yeah.
The Nintendo Switch 2, $19 million.
That's going to be the place where people draw the lines. You know, electronics, if, you know, whatever's affected in electronics, people get antsy about that stuff. It's like not only the price, you know, we want it cheap or cheaper or as cheap as possible. We also want it now, the availability.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with the China tariffs and how that's going to affect what, but you can bet there's going to be a lot of stuff that is affected, and people are going to be, you know, hey, you know, it's because the average person's not really following everything every day like wonks are, like all of us. But they go out into the consumer world and all of a sudden something isn't available, or as you alluded to earlier, you go to order something on Amazon and it's like, yeah, well, we're going to have to, you know, they're going to become aware of that tariff there, and that's, you know, going to be part of that retail impact.
Available in 6 to 8 weeks.
Exactly.
From Amazon. What are you talking about? All right, so Sweden. Products most affected by the tariffs. Sweden. IKEA's most popular coffee table, $179.99, and will no longer come with instructions. Then they have Thailand. This is a made-up country. And finally, my favorite, Germany. Nazi motorcycles with a cool sidecar. $20,000 in Nazi gold.
Nazi gold.
Oh, my God. They're just so great.
Yeah.
All right, here's a question that I have. By the time, let's say Trump gets a free trade deal with everybody.
Right.
Will it be antiquated soon because of AI? And we sort of asked this question a couple of days ago, that outside of China, because of intellectual property and the things, you know, that they have stolen, when it comes to even, and we know that they're outsourcing, we talked about this years ago, where China is outsourcing jobs to other Asian countries like Vietnam.
And by the way, they think they're going to spread that out to other nations in order to avoid tariffs.
But if you're doing so much of the work with human hands and AI can replace that, has anybody done the figuring of whether the United States is going to be fine that all these free trade agreements, and I'm asking this as a question, not a statement, that they're going to be antiquated because we have so much productivity and efficiency here. We still have the world's number one economy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but we lead almost every country, the vast majority of quarters, in productivity and efficiency. Not that it doesn't go down at times, you know, that fluctuates, but we're one of the world leaders in that. Well, if you bring AI to the United States, will any human being be assembling 99% of the products anywhere in the world?
Well,
no matter what their pay scale is, does AI make it cheaper? And does the management systems through AI make any modern Western country, and especially the United States, where, you know, if you take away the regulations, the climate change, all this other stuff that gets in the way, if we have much cheaper electricity because we actually go after it where the other countries don't, does that give us the potential to not worry about what anybody else is doing?
What well-connected richest man in the world is on the forefront of AI technology?
He's in the government now?
Elon Musk.
That everybody hates?
Exactly. And think about this. If you were to take your question, because I think it's a great question, and apply that accordingly, then Elon Musk could be showing, because, again, if you're looking to attract companies here, right, come set up your headquarters here, because if you think about this, with AI and the possibilities there on manufacturing, what then would be the greatest cost if you're overseas? It's not going to be labor anymore. It's going to be shipping.
Yeah,
getting it,
exactly,
getting it to
right.
the States.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense, especially if you have a sound energy policy in place. More nukes, more drilling,
mm-hmm.
and you have cheap energy, cheap, plentiful, reliable energy, and you have AI. You could have Elon Musk, if not just with Doge. Elon Musk could show all trade representatives, Besant, and everybody, here's how you attract these companies, because we can show them how AI is going to benefit them long-term when it comes to manufacturing, if they want to come here. And we're on the forefront here in the States, especially with his company, but what he knows about AI, even if they're not going to use his company, and how you implement that and integrate that into your business model. Because I would think that, again, if you take everything out of the equation and you're going to remain overseas and not come to the States, and you're looking at AI, well, then at some point, then your biggest cost is going to be shipping. We've seen that, actually. We saw that not only the cost of shipping when oil prices rise, but also the delicate supply chain, global supply chain. And that's a problem. We saw that during COVID, right? So if there's any kind of policy in any of those routes, with the countries involved in those routes, that changes, then it becomes problematic, and it takes longer to get that widget from A to B. Well, you solve all of that. So you have AI, there's your labor, or massive assist to your labor. You have a cheap and plentiful energy, reliable energy, and you have, of course, the largest consumer market in the world.
So I guess my two questions would be this. How much will AI, in real terms, not speculative as we see now, how much will that improve efficiency and productivity? And will AI in the United States be able to beat the cost of assembly lines in Vietnam? Well, if you're increasing the productivity by what they say the possibilities are.
I would think it has that potential. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I sit and I say,
because it's more intuitive. If
right.
you think about the entire, because you you also close certain gaps in the supply chain, right, between manufacturing and then shipping. Manufacturing and shipping, there's kind of a step A to B there, but that actually could be a fluid step. If you fully integrate AI, I could see that being a full, okay, it's going here, and that's all one big motion, where you can't accomplish that with humans, regardless of how cheap you get those humans for.
Right.
So
right.
It's a much more efficient process time-wise, which means you're making more, and if the demand is there for that, whatever product you're making, then you can sell more. You can ramp up production, create that efficiency and get it in, anywhere in the world. And by the way, export from the U.S. if needed. When you're setting up, when you're setting up shop, they all want to be here. It's the political climate. It's the choices we've made to keep them. I remember Tim Cook with Apple sitting down with Lester Holt, NBC News, saying, look, we've been trying to reinvest money back into the states, and it's just now coming around. This is during Trump's first term with the GOP in the states, and the Democrats have been keeping us from doing that. And there's that famous story from Tim Cook's predecessor, where it was, the liberals wanted to keep and still do want to punish you for bringing money back to the states to invest it here. That's insane.
And that would be American companies that make a profit over there and are taxed over there that don't want to bring it back and be taxed again.
Steve Jobs had a conversation, tried to get Obama to listen, and he wouldn't. And we want that money to come back here for that investment, for them to do what they do. And Tim Cook, again, not a conservative, but was essentially thanking the GOP for working toward that effort of allowing that money to come back. And that's what you want. Everybody wants to be here. But the political climate being unpredictable and the fact that cycles, happen every 4 to 8 years.
We talk about AI, but then again, you look at the you look at the United States, the different states right now, and the population shifts. And you and I have asked the question: what's it going to be for when we look at states like Texas, and compare Texas to California when it comes to industry, when it comes to business, just because of the government regulation in California compared to Texas.
Right.
Well, if the United States as a whole has less regulations, less DEI, less climate change crap.
Yeah.
And we already beat Europe when it comes to productivity.
Yeah. Right.
And AI, we kick it off and we do it. And that's one of the things that's talked about is China AI versus the United States, AI. And that's why you've got people like Musk saying, we need to be the leader in this and get on this right now. We need to be the leader. We cannot let regulation, we cannot let energy, the lack of energy, keep us from doing this. We've got to do it. Well, if we do it with the success of American productivity and efficiency, do any of these free trade agreements matter 10 years from now?
They may not. And it may also help to temper regulation that I talked about, because think about this. Quite often the marketplace gets to the point of, we want it tomorrow, we want it tomorrow, we want it today, we want it now, we want it efficiently. If AI creates even greater efficiencies in the supply chain, the consumer is going to demand it, and then the Beltway has to listen. And if you think that's nonsense, look how hard it was to shut down TikTok, which is owned by China.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Everybody was screaming.
Well, that was brought up yesterday. If we're not going to deal with China, close TikTok now.
Right.
That was brought up. And you saw that all over social media yesterday.
So when you see that, if AI creates more and more efficiencies where it's just, so smooth and seamless, it'll be harder to get in more of that regulation. Not that they won't, but it will be harder to do that because the consumer will demand that efficiency.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, the funniest thing from the Babylon Bee story, the parody story of how tariffs are going to affect products from each country.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going down, it's like South Africa, Colombia, California.
That's funny.
Mickey Mouse ears, $500. Terrible political ideas, $1 million each. But my favorite one is when they go to Cuba.
Yeah.
Baseball players, $1.2 billion for an 8-year contract.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh, boy.
Yeah, I love that.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens today, really, is with the stock market, because I look at it and how it was fluctuating up and down overnight, and you're thinking, all right, what's the investor thinking right now? Are they did they make the profit yesterday and trying to dump out today because the markets are down in the United States?
Or is it, sobering up after, this great deal of relief yesterday and going, okay, now we got to deal with what the impact from the China tariffs may be, or if the other tariffs are going to come back in 90 days, or again, where it's going.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.